All right. Hi, everybody. If you are here, I am sorry about this morning. I don't know what the deal is. Oh, my hair's looking good this morning, isn't it, guys? Um, I'll just push it away a little further. So I don't know what's going on with Zoom. I get frustrated when technology does not work with me. So just a little bit. I'll give another minute. Hi, guys. I don't know who PS4 is. Who's saying hi to me? But hi, anyway. I see 7 people are in here. That's awesome. I'll just wait another minute. Now we have got 8. I will talk a little bit about where we left off. Oh, hi, Noah J. Hi, Marin. I will just give you a little bit of a kind of recap of what happened last time. Basically, Liam, hi, Jake. Ian, oh my gosh, Ian had called Radford Ratface, and hi, Joseph. And Radford didn't get mad on Ratface. Radford didn't get mad, and Ian said, I thought he was pretty nice about it. And then JJ, the sarcastic, bratty one, said, yeah, right, snicker JJ, Radford, nice, that's a good one. So if you can do me a favor while I am reading, unless you have a question or something, if you could not comment on the side, that would be great. Just because I get distracted when everyone's typing and everything. So I see we've got 15 people here. That's great. And I would just appreciate, like I said, if you guys could refrain from typing comments, that would be great. If you continue to do it, then I guess that's who you are and not a good listener. I don't know. Here we go. Chapter 12 is good this week, by the way. It's short, but it's good. All right, here we go. Monday, July 17th, 06:45 hours. Will, wake up. Will rolled over and cast a baleful eye at his sister. Beat it, Lise. You're not supposed to be in here. Come on. She dragged him out of the narrow bunk. His elbow smacked Ian in the back of the head as he splashed to the deck. The water was well over his knees, halfway to his waist. Ow, the younger boy sat up. What's going on? Yeah, stormed Will. This better be good, Lisa. Radford's gone. Gone? Scoffed JJ. Where could he go? Out for a stroll? He's just disappeared, she said. Maybe he fell off the boat. I couldn't get that lucky, grumbled Luke. Besides, Ratface is a career sailor. He'd never go overboard, not in calm seas like this. Excuse me. Up on deck, they found Charla waiting for them. Notice anything missing? She asked. You mean besides one psychopath? JJ retorted. She pointed to the riggings around the foresail. There hung the inflatable lifeboat, exactly where they had stowed it the day before. But the Phoenix's 12-foot wooden dinghy was gone. He must have sailed off in the middle of the night, took the GPS too, and most of our food. He left us, Ian said wide-eyed, all alone? Impossible, Will insisted. Nobody's that rotten, not even Radford. It doesn't make sense, said Luke. Why would he set out in a wooden bathtub? Surely it's better to stay on a 60-foot boat. It's not exactly in mint condition, Lisa put in. The mast's busted and the bowsprit's useless. Not to mention the cabins are full of water, added Charla. It took a few seconds for the truth to seep down. We're sinking, cried Will. That's why Radford split. Water's coming in faster than we can pump it out. And he knew. Shocked silence followed. All 6 waited for someone to speak out, to say, of course not. That's not what happened. That's not what's happening at all. Here's the real story. But the facts were undeniable. They had pumped all day to lower the water level, and in the morning it was high again. Higher even. The schooner was leaking, sinking, and they were on their own. Heart pounding, Luke thought back to the moment yesterday when the mate had gone from his usual loudmouth, bullying self to quiet, sullen, and withdrawn. In that instant, Ratface must have made up his mind to desert them. He might as well have signed their death warrants. What chance did 6 inexperienced kids have on a sinking boat? The unfairness of it suddenly seemed so weighty that it threatened to crush him. He was only here because he trusted a false friend with his locker combination. Never in Luke's wildest nightmares had he imagined it would cost him his life. That scumball, he said finally. Oh no, breathed Lisa. Charlotte sat down on the deck, her head in her hands. It's all my fault, moaned Ian. I messed up his name. I got him mad at us. Hey, Luke grabbed him by the shoulder. You don't leave people to die because somebody made fun of you. God, to do something like this, you've got to be evil. So what do we do now? Asked Will in a daze. We just sink and that's it? That's what Radford must think, Luke said seriously. If we make it to some port and tell the story of how he deserted us, he's in big trouble. In his mind, we're already fish food. He's right, gasped Will, fighting back tears. How do you know? Lisa snapped angrily. He's a sailor, he yelled. He knows a sinking boat when he sees one. Idiot. Not now, commanded Luke. We have to think. There must be something we can do. We can pump, Charla ventured. Radford knew that, Lisa pointed out, and he's still split. But it'll buy us time, Luke argued. Every gallon we pump out must mean a few more minutes before we sink. Now, what else have we got? The foresail, said Ian. We never raised it, but it's ready. And the engine, Lisa said thoughtfully. I could be wrong, but it's just wet. Wet, cried her brother. It's underwater. We pump out the engine room, take the motor apart, dry it out. Her eyes gleamed. Maybe I can put it back together again. This isn't your science fair project, Will exploded. It's real life. Well, have you got a better idea? She shot back. JJ shook his head. Could I just say something? One by one, they looked him in the eye. No offense, but I've never seen such a bunch of total saps in my life. Oh, no offense taken, Luke said unkindly. Seriously, JJ persisted. I mean, don't you think this is all a little too inconvenient? Luke looked daggers at him. No, I think it's pretty inconvenient that Rat-Face left us for dead in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And when the boat sinks, that'll even be less inconvenient. The boat's not sinking, scoffed JJ, and Radford didn't leave us either. Will was confused. Then where is he? The actor's son shrugged. On another boat just out of sight, watching us through binoculars, and you know who's with him? The captain. You're sick, stormed Luke. The captain's dead. I saw him go over the side, and so did you. Luke chuckled. The special effect guys who work on my dad's movies, they can make anything seem like anything. The captain's death, the sinking boat, Radford's disappearance, they faked all that. But why? Charlotte asked in a small voice. To see how we'll react under pressure, JJ explained. That's CNC's whole gig. Cooperation, teamwork. They're probably watching us right now, making notes on what we say and do. I'll bet they've got hidden cameras and microphones all over this boat. You know what? Said Luke. You're crazy. I'm the only one sane here, JJ replied coolly. I've got news for you, Luke told him. You're not the center of the universe. Nobody's watching you through hidden cameras. If this boat sinks, you're going to drown along with the rest of us because the ocean doesn't care who your daddy is. That's your opinion, JJ said smugly. If you guys want to break your backs on those pumps, then be my guest. I'm on vacation. If anybody needs me, I'll be working on my tan. And before their shocked eyes, JJ Lane spread a towel across the cabin top, flaked out on it, and surrendered his body to the sun's rays. This JJ guy. Chapter 13, Monday, July 17th, 1440 hours. It was fairly easy to raise the foresail and get the Phoenix moving again, but as to whether or not it was the right direction, that was anybody's guess. Radford had given their last position as northeast of Guam. Even though they had drifted a lot since that reading, they were following the compass, west-southwest. It seemed the only course. I don't know, Luke said uneasily. We're probably wasting our time. We could be getting even more lost than before. In a crisis, lectured Ian, it's always best to keep busy to prevent the onset of panic. Luke stared at the boy who spoke so seldom that they often had to remind themselves he was aboard. Since when did you become ship's counselor? Ian flushed. I saw it on a documentary once. Luke sighed. Ian, did anyone ever tell you that you watch way too much TV? My parents, Ian nodded sadly, right before they put me on this trip. Luke sent Ian below to the navigation room to see if he could find any maps. Charts, the captain had always called them. In open ocean, there were no landmarks, but it might be helpful to know the course the Phoenix had been following before the disaster struck. He watched the younger boy's careful footsteps. The schooner's deck now sloped dangerously down toward the bow. It was because both pumps were working in the engine room near the stern. For the time being, anyway, they were letting the forward compartments fill up with water. It was a big risk, no question about it. If the Phoenix got too far out of balance, Luke reflected, it could take a diagonal dive just like the Titanic. But tough times called for tough choices. They needed the engine, and Lisa couldn't fix it if the thing was underwater. Luke looked up, squinting in the sunlight. He could barely make out Charlotte perched atop the foremast. She was scanning the horizon for signs of other ships, ready to fire off distress flares if she spotted anything. The job had fallen to her mostly because she was the only one with the guts to climb up the rat lines. Her and JJ. But Luke doubted JJ, the daredevil, would be interested unless there was a reasonable chance of him killing himself. And besides, the actor's son was boycotting the effort to be rescued, still convinced that their current peril was all part of CNC's plan. Lisa had already started taking apart the motor, even though the engine room was still under 2 feet of water. She was working by snorkel mask. Every few minutes she would surface like a submarine, and another wet part would hit the drying towel with a dull clink. Will's official job was pumper, but he doubled as a nervous nag. You remember where that piece goes, right? He kibitzed down the open engine hatch. You know how to put it back together? No, she said sarcastically. I'm busting it up just to get you killed. Will can decide what made him more uneasy, their current danger or the fact that Lisa was emerging as the big hero. Ian came running up the companionway, waving a thick folder with the CNC logo on the cover. You found the maps? Luke asked. Ian shook his head. Files. Sorry, I had to move. I've been sitting for too long. I don't like sitting for this long, like you guys in class, I know. Files, Luke repeated. On us. Luke gave Ian the wheel and fished through his own file. Now that he thought about it, of course charting a new course would need information on its charges. Still, it was eerie to see his whole life between the covers, almost like the FBI had been keeping tabs on him. But this stuff must have come from his parents. There were school pictures and report cards, medical records. It said he'd been allergic to milk as a baby. Was that true? No one had ever mentioned anything to him. All the court documents were in there, along with the arrest report and his suspension papers from school. And what was this? Luke recognized his mother's handwriting on the letter. Luke is a good boy, but lately he's been running with a tough crowd, including a boy named Reese, who has been in trouble with the law before. We want to believe him when he says that the gun wasn't his, but we don't want to be naive either, not where Luke's future is concerned. We can't take the chance that this Reese has gotten him involved with a gang. We think it might be a good idea to get him away from here for a while. Therefore, we're accepting the court's proposal to send him to you. Luke put the letter down, blinking hard. They said they believed me. By this time, all pumping work had stopped for the crew members to dig into their files. Lisa emerged from the engine room, and Charlotte abandoned her lookout post to join them. Even JJ interrupted his tanning to flip quickly through his folder. He was unimpressed. Big deal. So I'm a flake. What else is new? He peered over Ian's shoulder. Couch potato. No friends. What a surprise. Lay off, Luke warned. But JJ had already moved on to Will and Lisa. Whoa, what are you guys, hitmen? This isn't much violence. There isn't this much violence in the James Bond movies. Will flushed. I don't know how it happens. 1 minute we're just arguing. Lisa cut him off. Shut up, Will. We don't have to explain anything. Mind your own business, rich boy. JJ shrugged. I don't see any of you guys in the poorhouse. CNC doesn't come cheap, you know. You find the money, Luke put in grimly, when your two choices are either here or jail. Or you borrow it, Charlotte added bitterly. Not all of us live in Beverly Hills. Yeah, what's your story? Asked JJ, snatching the folder from her hands. She reacted like a wildcat. Give that back. JJ held the file up out of her reach and kept on reading over her head. Charlotte leaped like a basketball player, grabbed the papers from his hand, and fixed him with a withering glare. Moron, she muttered. He looked bewildered. What'd I do? That's private, she raged. You know what it says? That you're world class at like 15 sports. Oh, what a deep, dark secret. My own father sends me halfway around the world just so he won't have to look at me. But you don't want anyone to find out that you're a star. You don't get to that part where it says what a head case I am. Or sorry, you didn't get to the part where it says what a head case I am, she mumbled. We're all head cases, JJ told her. This is a trip for head cases. That's why we're here. Lisa pushed her snorkel mask down over her face. Well, this was fun. She stepped into the engine hatch. JJ regarded the pile of folders. What are we going to do with these? Luke glared at him. You really want to hear my suggestion? JJ picked up the files and walked to the gunwale. With the exaggerated wind-up of a major league pitcher, he flung them into the sea. How's the environment now? He asked Charla. It'll live, she replied, tight-lipped. Well, let's get back to work, said JJ. Luke raised an eyebrow. Look who's admitting that we might be in trouble. I'm bored, that's all, JJ insisted. Gotta have something to do till the cavalry arrives. Which pump is mine? Chapter 14 is the last chapter. It's kind of short. So here we go. Wait till you see what happens in this chapter. It's so good. All right. Or bad, depending on how you look at it. Here we go. Chapter 14, Monday, July 17th, 1640 hours. As the day wore on, Luke watched the bow of the Phoenix sink lower and lower into the sea. At least a dozen times he was tempted to send the pumpers forward to try to even out the schooner's balance. No, if they had a chance, it was with the motor. They had to pump out the engine room first. It was an agonizing decision. If they took a nosedive to the bottom, it would be all his fault. Even in a glassy calm, sleepy waves broke over the gunwale. The water puddled for only a moment before rolling down a deck that was sloped like a parking ramp. If another storm blew through, the Phoenix wouldn't last 5 minutes. In the crew cabins, even the upper bunks were swamped now. Where the crew members were supposed to sleep was anybody's guess. Probably they just wouldn't sleep anymore. Luke thought back to the night before, crammed next to JJ in the narrow berth. That misery might go down as his final night of sleep ever. The thought coaxed a nervous chuckle from him, but beneath the surface lingered a feeling so awful he didn't dare dwell on it. By 5 o'clock, the entire engine was spreading across 2 beach towels in the stern. Will surveyed the scene with a frown. I hope you can look at this stuff and see a motor, because all I see is a huge pile of junk. Lisa looked preoccupied. I've got it straight in my mind. Don't bug me. It took another hour to get the last few inches of thick, murky slime off the floor of the engine room. Then Lisa eased herself down the hatch to start the long task of reassembly. The pumpers rushed forward to work on the crew cabins and the area below decks directly under the bow. They were exhausted, but there was no time for a break. As Luke put it, their next break could be spent on the ocean floor. Dun, dun, dun. The sun was setting when Will stepped into the cockpit and joined Luke at the wheel. He checked their direction, still west-southwest. How do we know that's right? He asked uneasily. Maybe the compass is broken like everything else in this tub. Luke shrugged. You can't be off course when you don't know where you're going in the first place. He regarded the foresail. Wind's picking up. We should probably let out the sheet a little. Will groaned. If you're turning into a real sailor, I'm going to start treating you like Radford. Luke shot Will a look. Don't mention that name, not even as a joke. Will shook his head. How could anybody do what he did? I mean, we're talking about dying here. Are we so worthless to him? Luke looked at him sharply. We're not worthless. Ratface is worthless. If there's any justice in the world, he'll get his. Unless, Will frowned, you don't think JJ could be right, that all this is part of the CNC thing? It's pretty crazy, said Luke. They'd have to trash their own boat, wash the captain into the sea on purpose. Anything's possible, I guess. I'd love to believe that the captain's okay. Me too, Will agreed fervently. That's probably what's in JJ's head. He feels responsible. He is responsible, Luke said flatly. He's born with a dream life. He gets whatever he wants whenever he wants it, and he's still the biggest screw-up I've ever met. Lisa heaved herself through the engine room hatch, dusting ineffectually at the cake mucked on her knees. Will looked at his sister anxiously, but couldn't read her expression. Tell me it's good news. It's back together, she replied. That's all I know for sure. The captain said never to start the engine without the blower, Luke reminded her. The blower's electric, Lisa explained. If we run it before the engine's on, we could drain the battery charge. English, Lise, Will interrupted impatiently. We'll have to improvise. She picked up the spattered beach towels that had been used to dry off the engine parts and tossed one to Luke and one to Will. When I give the word, you guys stand over the hatch and fan it like crazy. Luke was amazed. And that's safe? She knows this stuff, Will said fervently. She's got an A on that science project. Lisa replaced Luke at the wheel and waited for the two boys to establish themselves above the hatch. Okay, now. Like palace guards fanning the Sultan, Luke and Will began waving their towels up and down, ventilating the engine room. Lisa hit the starter button. The motor turned over, choked once, and then died. Will cursed and threw his towel to the deck. Don't stop, she ordered briskly. They resumed fanning, and she tried again. This time, the engine putted itself to life. All right, Lise, shouted Will. His sister looked at him sharply, but found no sarcasm in his praise. Cheering and applause came from the pumpers above the crew cabins. Charlotte flashed them thumbs up from her spot atop the foremast. Okay, exclaimed Luke, put her in gear. Lisa pushed forward on the throttle. The motor coughed and sputtered out. Oh, man, moaned Will. So the whole process began again. Luke and Will fanned while Lisa tried to nurse the starter along. It's not easy, you know, Will protested as the motor roared to life, only to die with a wheeze and a hiccup of machinery. It's murder on your shoulders. You're such a crab, Lisa sneered. Luke rolled his eyes. What was with these two? They were on a sinking boat. This could be their last conversation. Why did it have to be fighting words? As they continued to work and bicker, Luke noticed in alarm that the roar of the motor was becoming less and less frequent. After a few more minutes, the engine wouldn't even turn over. Will was worried too. Oh, Lise, I knew you'd bust it. Probably just flooded the carburetor, said Lisa, grabbing the toolbox. I can smell the gas. Once again, she lowered herself into the engine hatch. What's the problem? Charlotte called. Luke could only shrug. You should come down. It's getting dark. Give me another half hour, came the reply. I can still see a little. After a few minutes, Lisa emerged, reeking of fuel. I think I've got it this time. She climbed into the cockpit and reached for the starter. Luke and Will resumed fanning. My arm's falling off, Will complained. He only let go for a second to rest his aching shoulder, but at that moment a gust of wind snatched the greasy terry cloth from his other hand. The towel spread open like a full sail and floated slowly down over the engine hatch. Hey, wait, Will began, but Lisa's oil-stained finger was already pressing the button. Dun, dun, dun. The spark from the engine ignited the trapped fumes in the engine room. It made a phoom, like the lighting of a propane barbecue, only a lot louder. This was followed by a split-second pause as the fire shot up the fuel lines to the Phoenix's 90-gallon gas tanks. I know, here we go. Get down, howled Lisa, hurling herself to the deck of the cockpit. A mammoth explosion rocked the schooner, and for a moment dusk was bright as day. Suddenly, the main cabin and galley were gone, replaced by a pillar of flame. The force of the blast threw Luke, Will, and Lisa out over the transom, clear into the sea. Luke tasted salt water for a moment and then resurfaced into a burning hailstorm. Bits of cabin, deck, and galley, all on fire, pelted down on him, forcing him to dive. The blazing cook stove of the Phoenix hit the waves right where he had been a split second before. On the foredeck, the shock wave knocked JJ and Ian off their feet. When they recovered, they found themselves facing a wall of fire that engulfed 2/3 of the boat. The extinguisher, cried Ian, reaching down the companionway and yanking the small tank from its mounting on the bulkhead. He pulled the pin and sprayed foam at the blaze. JJ picked up a bucket and began bailing water from the cabin and sloshing it into the firestorm. The heat was unbearable, and they stumbled on the ruined deck, which was a tangle of twisted planks and splinters. It's no use, bawled JJ. We might as well be throwing Dixie cups of Kool-Aid. The blast had knocked Charlotte out of her post atop the foremast, landing her upside down in the rat lines. It took every ounce of her gymnastics training to right herself again. Through the waves of heat and smoke that billowed over her, she spotted JJ and Ian, but when she looked aft, she saw only the boiling orange of the blaze. "Where are the others?" she called down. "In the stern," shouted Ian. "There is no stern. It's all fire back there." With a terrible creaking sound, the flaming stump of the main mast toppled over in a shower of sparks. It crushed the cabin top, cutting the younger boy off from JJ. "Ian!" JJ cried. Ian jumped back, stumbling on an upended deck board. The extinguisher dropped from his hands, rolling into the fire, and exploded in a whoosh of compressed gas. The blazing mainmast ignited the foresail. JJ sloshed water onto the smoldering sail, but flames quickly licked up the canvas, forcing Charlotte back atop the mast. The fire soon spread to the sheets and rigging. "Ian, can you hear me?" called JJ. "Get out of there," came Ian's voice from the inferno. JJ spun around. To where? There were only two choices: either stay on the burning boat or take his chances in the vast, inhospitable, and terrifying sea. End of chapter. Dun dun dun. So that is it. I guess you guys have to wait till next Monday unless you have the book. Don't spoil what happens. I don't even know what happens because I haven't read this book before and I'm waiting to read it with you guys so I can be just as excited as you guys. Well, my hair looks terrible today. Anyway, I will be when I am done here recording, I will be going into Seesaw and putting in your assignments for the week. There's a journal, and the journal has a chart. You guys are supposed to be picking a character for each journal. So you should have the same character. So if you chose Luke through all the journals that you've been doing, you should still be Luke. And the journal's asking you to identify. We did this with Warhorse. Identify the relationships that he has with the other characters and give an example from the book. And then there's a boat, and you're to pick, I can't remember the number, I want to say 10 or 15 boat terms and label them on the boat, and make sure you aren't labeling ones that are like anchor, like we all know what an anchor is, but maybe words that you've heard, or you could even look up online a picture of a boat and label them. So I think that's it. And then I think I will also be posting social studies. I don't even remember. I worked on it last week and I can't remember what the assignment what it is this week for social studies. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me or send me a message through Seesaw. I'm going in to grade the things from like later last week. I started the beginning of the week grading things, but then I didn't grade like this weekend. I took it off because it's Mother's Day, So I think that's it. I'm glad you guys could join me. I see Maria's in here and Marin and a few of you other people that are usually in here. I hope you have a good day. I love you all. I miss you very much. Take it easy. Have a good one.